So I don't see how you break this cycle. And again, I just live in right now, the fear that, well, I think we've begun to see some of the ripple effects, some of the political ripple effects. Obviously, the vote by the Iraqi parliament, which is not binding, but sends a strong political message about the undesirability of American forces remaining in Iraq. We've seen demonstrations, massive demonstrations in Iran, massive demonstrations in Iraq. Reactions among the Shiite population in Lebanon, mobilization of the pro-Iranian axis, and the statement by Iran, the announcement that they were going to further diminish their commitment to the nuclear deal. So those are the first political ripple effects of something that's going to, an event whose repercussions we're going to live with in the coming days, but also in the coming years. What we need to see, the next shoe to drop, is going to be what is the actual response, what is the reaction once Iran has decided what it will do, when it's taken sort of the measure of where it is. Does it react militarily or not? Does it react directly, or is it one of its proxies or allied forces? Is it directly against the United States? Is it in the cyber areas, in the nuclear domain? I think those are the questions that Iranian leaders are discussing today, and they may not themselves know where they'll end up. I'm a piss optimist. I love that expression. They say they're taking this final step, which is that they're no longer going to be bound by one aspect of the nuclear deal, but they have not withdrawn from the nuclear deal. They still are accepting the special access by the IEA, the Atomic Energy Inspectors, who are going to continue to have access to the sites to see what's happening. And they've left open the door for diplomacy to say, well, if the sanctions are lifted or if they get sanctions relief, they might be willing to come back into compliance with some of those steps. So there's a window, but each month or 2 months that go by when Iran announces one more step away from the deal, that window gets smaller, and the risk that Iran decides to take steps that are going to bring it in a place that will raise the kind of concerns that existed in 2012, 13, 14, before the deal was reached. We get closer to that point. But let's not jump to the conclusion today that Iran has left the deal or that the deal is over. I think the things to watch in the coming, again, weeks, months are, do they allow access to the inspectors? If they don't, that's a very ominous sign. Do they walk away from the NPT, the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty? If they do that, that's an equally, if not far more ominous sign. So I think that's, let's see what they do, not just what they say. Let's see if they begin enriching at 20% or not. Let's see what kind of centrifuges they put they start reactivating. So let's see what they do. They've made a statement. There's still this sort of a gap between what they say and what they do, and then let's see what the next step may be. To look at the negative side, but I'm not somebody who believes that the sky is falling. And Secretary Pompeo says we're safer today than we were before. I think myself and many others believe that is manifestly incorrect, because we've just spoken about the threats to Americans in the Middle East, in the Gulf, perhaps elsewhere. So why else would we be evacuating Americans from Iraq if they were not in greater danger? I don't think we're on the verge of World War III. I just find it hard putting myself in Iranian in their shoes. I think Secretary Pompeo and others like him believe that the U.S. is really threatened when others are less afraid of the United States than the United States is afraid of them. And this is their notion, is that they need to reestablish, in their view, a deterrent effect where other countries have to worry about the U.S.'s reaction and not the other way around. So that's why I think, if you listen to what Secretary Pompeo said, he said there might be a little bit of noise. In the short term, yes, maybe there'll be some attacks against Americans. What he's thinking of is in the long term. The Trump administration has reestablished, in their view, the notion that it's up to others to worry about what the Americans will do, not for the United States to worry about what they will do. That's why he says, and again, I have no reason to doubt that he believes what he's saying, that America is safer. America is safer in his view because it has restored the sense of deterrence, because the U.S. is prepared to do virtually anything in response to an attack against any American. Of course, the fallacy, or at least the flaw in that reasoning from my perspective and of many of my colleagues, is that the short term matters, and the short term has long-term consequences. And that if Iran today makes the same calculus, the same mirror image calculus that the U.S. does, which is that if it doesn't react, its own security is going to be at stake. And it too needs to send the message that it's not going to stay passive in the face of an attack. Then you're in a cycle that the U.S. couldn't dominate because it's stronger, but that the U.S. can't end. And as long as this continues, American lives will be at risk.